Hey y'all, it's me Alex. Today I'm gonna finally film an anti-haul. I've been meaning to film one of these for a while. I haven't been buying makeup. The last piece of makeup that I bought myself was that highlighter I talked about a few videos ago, the Makeup Revolution one that was like $6 because it was an Aristocats highlighter. So I haven't been buying makeup, and there are many things that I want, but like I want to buy makeup, but I want to buy things that are not makeup a little bit more than the makeup that I want. So I have a very long makeup wish list right now that I need to anti-haul. It's been a while since I filmed one of these, so it's probably been a while since you all have seen one of my specific brand of anti-hauls. I'm gonna move to the side here a little bit. My specific brand of anti-haul is specifically related to my own personal wish list, because I feel like there are so many things that I see on like Trend Mood, wherever people get makeup news, you know, that it's very easy for me to say, meh, don't want that. But like, I think the more important thing for me to anti-haul are the things that I do actually want and kind of talk myself out of them, or you know, maybe if I decide later that I want to buy something that I have previously anti-hauled, for me that feels like it is a smarter purchasing decision after I've like kind of given myself all the reasons why I shouldn't do it. You know what I mean? Most things, like 99% of things, I'm able to kind of talk myself out of this way, but the couple of purchases that I have made after anti-hauling things, that's how I knew that I really wanted it. Because I'm very easily convinced. It's very easy for me to convince myself that no, I don't need something. So I have a long wish list going. And it's going back a little bit further than your average beauty news sort of thing, because I haven't been posting and I haven't been super active online and giving my thoughts about things. So that's enough. That's enough of that. So let's get into it. Firstly, more recent one, the Natasha Denona Retro Palette. I haven't been super into a lot of Natasha Denona's stuff. Like I think she has a specific audience that isn't me, and that is totally fine. Like, you do you, go ahead. But that retro palette, weirdly, because it's very neutral, it weirdly intrigues me. Like, it looks like what I wanted the Too Faced Chocolate Bar palette to be. That is a palette that I decluttered like a year ago to my mom because I had insisted that I was going to use it, and then I never did because all of the shades were like not as vibrant and intense as I wanted them to be. And I feel like the shades in this palette are a lot closer to that sort of vibrancy and intensity, at least in terms of a neutral palette, as like vibrant as a neutral palette can be. I don't need it because Natasha Denona's palettes are so very expensive, and I think the most that I am currently willing to spend on a palette is like melt prices, and even then I try and get it on a sale. That's why I haven't bought the Mary Jane palette yet. I anti-hauled that last time and I still very much want it and intend to get it, actually. But now I'm, you know, I don't want to buy it without a sale. Sorry. So Natasha Denona's prices are a little bit steep, and I know that I have something actually very similar at a very different price point, because one of my friends pointed out to me in a Discord server that we're all a part of that it actually kind of looks exactly like the Colourpop X's and O's palette. And I have that palette, and probably the reason that I'm attracted to the Natasha Denona palette, sure, let's go with that. Why I'm attracted to the retro palette so much is because I have that one already and I genuinely really love it. Like, that is my go-to basic B palette. And that's proof that I don't need it, because that palette kind of does what I want the Natasha Denona palette to do. And the Natasha palette has like some of those weird creamy mattes that I don't like. My lids are too oily for that. My lids have so much oil that I'm surprised that the United States hasn't tried to go to war with them. Let's put it that way. So those creamy shadows won't work for me. And I also noticed that the retro palette has a lot more like lighter neutrals than the Colourpop X's and O's palette that I love. And the reason that I love that Colourpop palette is because there's so many like beautiful, deep, rich, like burgundy neutral shades in there. And that's what I'm attracted to the retro palette for, is the deeper shades, and since that doesn't have as many as the one I already own, I do not need it. Yeah. So I already thought that I hated myself for wanting an expensive Natasha Denona palette as badly as I wanted that one. But oh boy, I'm gonna be embarrassed to admit this one even more. The Anastasia Beverly Hills Norvina Volume 5. I'm not buying from ABH probably ever again, which is sad. It just went too downhill too fast for me to feel comfy with them again, which is mostly fine because they've stopped generally releasing things that I want, so like that's nice. But this palette, I know it is half purple, half neutral, and they could have cut out even half of those shades. But maybe it's that I have the Kaleidos Lunar Lavender, which is only 6 shades, and is so beautiful, and I use it, actually, it's one of, between that and my Melt Cheese and Parties palette, those are kind of like my 2 go-to work palettes at the moment. I love that Lunar Lavender palette, and I'm like, okay, I have 6 shades of that, I want more. And that's kind of what I am seeing in this that I really, really want. I really enjoy the combination of purple and brown. It does something for me that I can't quite explain. I don't want to say that it makes purples work appropriate because I've said this before, but most of the jobs I've had really don't care if I wear really bright out there makeup. So I'm not going to say it makes it like work appropriate, but that's like the only way I have to describe it. So I think that's kind of what I'm going for with wanting the Norvina Volume 5. I'm not gonna buy it because once again, too expensive, it's too big. I know that when I get it, I will get choice fatigue. When I go to do my makeup with something like that, my brain will just automatically go. I'll just start buffering and that won't work. I think if anything, if I'm going to buy something like that, I'm going to buy something else that I've anti-hauled in the past. We're talking about things that I've anti-hauled in the past that I actually do still kind of want after talking myself out of it. The little Viseart Violet palette, that one actually intrigues me a lot because I've heard amazing things about that, and I've heard mixed things about the Norvina palettes. And honestly, I could say that I'm like kind of attracted to each of the Norvina palettes, but all of them, there's something about each of them that kind of like, don't need it. So I don't need that. I want it, but I don't need it. Okay, a recent thing that fell under my radar until I got a targeted Facebook ad for it because Facebook owns way too much of me. Smashbox released a Suicide Squad themed collection, and that's actually one of the movies that I most recently watched. I watched that on HBO and I had a really fun time watching it. I love Harley Quinn. It was a fun time. It was a lot gorier than I anticipated, which like I enjoyed. But anyway, that was a fun time. And then I think like about a week after I watched it, I got the Facebook ad for the Smashbox Collection. Now it is nothing new to my collection. It is like expensive lipstick with branding that I like in colors that I already own or know that I won't wear. And here I am wanting it. Specifically all of the Harley Quinn themed makeup items because they have like a little set of hers. But I do want like a lot of the lipsticks. Actually, I want all of them in fact. Specifically like Harley Quinn's and then Rapmaster 2's. Once again, it's in shades that I already own. I don't need to buy something because of branding, but also if I happen to have like just enough money to spend on that collection, I would. But it wouldn't be a good use of my money at all because like I could put stickers on things or, you know, probably just watch the movie again because I want to do that. It was good. It was worth rewatching. I'll say this, I don't think it was like a groundbreaking deep movie or anything, but I think it was a fun time. It was a fun time. Also, just like listening to myself talk about this, I'm realizing that I don't necessarily want the makeup. I just want to watch the movie again and like maybe wear some good makeup while watching the movie. So it's 9:08. If I finish this in a reasonable amount of time, I might just do that. That might be my evening plans. Okay, so Colourpop has actually been doing really well in terms of making collections that I'm intrigued by. Number 1, the Powerpuff Girls collection. As a millennial Gen Z cusp, born in the year of 1996, Colourpop has been coming for me. I already talked about the Lizzie McGuire collection. Again, something that's still kind of, you know, I kind of want that a little bit, a lot of it, but I'm trying to resist. Powerpuff Girls was also something that I have a lot of nostalgia for. That was my show when I was like a small child. Like, I forget if it was my 5th or 6th birthday cake, But basically my mom decorated it with a picture of my face on it in the style of a Powerpuff Girl. Yes, my mom is fantastic and artistic, and I might see if maybe she has a photo she can send to me of this. If not, I'll be very, you know, you'll just have to see that it was like little tiny Alex with like a bob. Just imagine that as a Powerpuff Girl. It was fantastic. So Powerpuff Girls was my absolute jam when I was a child, and also as an adult, because I feel like the old cartoon kind of holds up pretty well. I haven't watched a lot of the new stuff, and I guess that's kind of the one thing that is kind of drawing me back from the Powerpuff Girls collection, is that it's like the art on it is largely based off of the new version, which I haven't really seen besides like promo videos. So there's that. And also I think the palette actually looks really nice. I know not everyone was a huge fan of it, but I think it actually turned out pretty decent. But I'm also looking at it, and while it looks pretty and aesthetically pleasing to me, I know that those aren't colors that I'm going to use a whole lot of, because while I'm just never seasonally appropriate with the colors that I choose for my makeup, I always want to do like fall tones in the middle of summer, like fall, winter, like dark smoky makeup, and then like randomly in the middle of December I'll be like, let's do pastels. I don't know why, I don't know what that is, but that's what I do. I have not been wearing a lot of like super bright makeup, more in the grungy, sort of smoky, earthy range, which is kind of where I always default to with my makeup. So while I would love to have the palette and I would get some use out of it, I know I won't get as much use out of it as I think I will. They also released a Lush Life collection, which looks really nice. That palette is really pretty and is right up my alley, and I think I would get a lot more use out of it more than the Powerpuff Girls one. Literally the only reason I have for not buying it is that I know that I have those colors already, so it'd just be like duping myself. I genuinely don't have any good reasoning besides that, like that, and like I could spend my money on other things that aren't that. Now we're done with Colourpop. Let's talk about Huda Beauty. There's like two things from them. Firstly, let's go in order of like when things have been released. So she made a skin tint that I almost bought and I'm still very interested in. I have always heard amazing things about Huda Beauty's complexion products, like the foundations, the concealers, and all of that. Everyone who I have heard try them has always had like an amazing experience with them. And the only reason I've never tried them is just because they're very full coverage. And in terms of like my foundation, my base, I like a skin tint. So that's why that kind of intrigues me, is because if she does complexion products as well as I've heard she does, I want to get in on that. But so far the only review I've heard about the skin tint that she released is from Julia Adams, and she didn't really seem to like it. So I want to hear more about it from other people, because I think the other thing too that has gotten me about so many companies making like tinted moisturizers, skin tints, is that most of them aren't really a skin tint or a tinted moisturizer. Most of them advertise it and then provide a lot more coverage than what I like. And it's more of like a medium coverage glowy product. I feel similarly about the new Fenty tinted moisturizer, although I've heard a lot more reviews about that one and I'm a bit more inclined to buy that one. But also like, I'm very happy with the tinted moisturizers that I have, the one from the Lip Bar and my one from NYX, and those are a lot less expensive. Although I've heard that the NYX Bear With Me is getting discontinued, and if that is true...
And that's when she snapped.
If that is true, that will be my Joker origin story. That is my perfect skin product. Yeah, so I might have to, because that Lip Bar foundation is like ever so slightly too dark for me, and that's the lightest shade that they have. And while this can work for me during the summer, during the winter I'm gonna have to find something else if they discontinue the next one. So I might end up trying one of those down the line, but today is not the day for me to buy a $30+ tinted moisturizer. Y'all know I love the little Huda Beauty Obsessions palettes. I have like 3 of them. I have the blue one, the purple one, and the little neon pink one, and I love them so very much. And she just released 4 more. And there's 2 specifically that I really want. So they're called the Wild Obsessions palette. So they're all like jungle-y things, which I love anything jungle themed, because I always find that those tones are like exactly up my alley. So that's already drawing me in. And there's 2 specifically that I want. The Jaguar one, because that's all like nice and smoky and like grungy and exactly the sort of tones that I'm going for in my makeup at the moment. And those are like pretty inexpensive in terms of her palette. So there's also the Python one, which is like blues and greens with like a little bit of coral in there, which is also beautiful. It kind of reminds me of a tiny version of that Kaleidos Club Nebula palette that they did with Angelica Nyquist. It's like a tiny version of that. And I never got that Club Nebula palette because it was always like sold out and a little bit out of my budget. My reasoning for not buying them at the moment is because like I've heard nothing about them, and I know that her eyeshadows get very, very, very mixed reviews. They're a lot like Melt shadows. Like sometimes they release really good ones or really terrible ones, and you don't know which one you're gonna get until you've heard the reviews. So as I do with Melt palettes, unless the color story really appeals to me, I'm gonna wait for some more reviews. And I think I'm gonna need to wait for some more reviews before I really say yes or no to one of these. I might pick up one of them if I have like a Sephora gift card or something. We shall see. I know I'm supposed to like be a beauty guru who like reviews things, and I will, but like sometimes when things are so hit or miss, I like don't want to spend my own money to do stuff like that to find out that I hate something, so I'm gonna wait on that one. So the next two things are things that I might not even really need to talk myself out of because they might be discontinued entirely. We're not sure. So let's see. Beauty Bay Wilderness palette. I'm gonna be mad if this one is actually discontinued, by the way, because I missed out on their Book of Magic palette, and that still haunts me to this day that I did not decide to spend $15 on that. Like, really? That was a beautiful one. And this one is beautiful as well. I have seen Batty Bean's review and like all of her looks with it. She can convince me to buy anything, but specifically the Wilderness palette is very, very beautiful. It looks like a combination of the Melt Vita and Muerte palette, both of them from their holiday collection like 2-3 years ago. So I think that's part of what draws me in, because I do have the Muerte palette, and that is still probably in my top 5 of all of the palettes that I own. While that is both a reason for me wanting it but also not needing it, I can deal with it being out of stock because I have the Muerte palette. I still think it's absolutely stunning to look at though. I've heard nothing but good things about it. One of these days I'm gonna try a Beauty Bay palette, but it might be discontinued entirely because it's currently out of stock, and I've heard mixed things from Beauty Bay as to whether or not it's going to actually be in stock again. You know, that might just not be a problem for me anymore. I don't need it. I really don't. That's a case of, because those colors are so up my alley, I already have them a million times over in my own collection. Which, when you have a collection as big as mine, I think that's something that you really do have to analyze. Okay, this thing is pretty and it is up my alley and it is something that I'll get a lot of use out of. However, is it actually adding anything new to my collection with what I already have? And I think with the Wilderness palette, while it's pretty inexpensive and all of the colors are absolutely something that I would use, I don't think it's necessarily a case of me needing it. Like, it will just be one more thing that I have to find a place for in my house. Okay, and the other thing is the Lethal is Dead collection. I love Teresa is Dead so very much. She's a wonderful human being. And I was very excited when she got a collaboration with Lethal Cosmetics because I've been wanting to try Lethal for a very long time. And so I thought that this might be my time to go for it. But firstly, this is the last restock that they're doing, so I might miss out on it entirely anyway if I don't act soon. 2, when I look at the palette, I think it is very pretty and very good, but not necessarily something that I would get a lot of use out of. I kind of liken it to the Colourpop Powerpuff Girls palette, although I think I like the look of the Lethal palette a lot more. It's like if the tones of it were ever so slightly deeper than what it is, because I think that's kind of what gets me, is that it's very pretty and I think it is very Teresa, and I think they did a fantastic job and I love looking at it. But while the colors in the palette are beautiful, I'm not sure if I will get like the optimum usage out of it. You know what I mean? Like, I know it doesn't necessarily show on my eyes right now, but I prefer tones that are a little bit deeper. And I think that, I mean, this is the thing that I've noticed with a lot of Lethal's palettes, but it's very like mid-tone heavy, which isn't necessarily bad. And I think I like looking at it, but I don't know if I'll use it as much as I would want to. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? Like, I would use it, but not as much as I would like to, and then it would sit there and I would feel kind of bad. So I think it's beautiful. I love looking at it. It just probably wouldn't do for me all the things that I would want it to. I have 3 things left. The next 2 things are from Pat McGrath. The new Utopian Dream Palette. I know I mentioned at the beginning of my video almost a half hour ago, but I haven't filmed this long in a long time. I don't like spending more than a melt palette on eyeshadow, but I will say that I would love to own a Pat McGrath palette one day. I would like to own a few things from Pat McGrath. Let me just name them off. The Utopian Dream Palette, which is new. The blushes, which are also new. And then also Adam Lambert has been posting makeup tutorials, which, by the way, I might do a video like following one of his because I love, he was the reason that I started doing my makeup kind of the way I do it back when I started wearing makeup when I was 13 and he was on American Idol. But anyway, he started posting makeup tutorials and talked a lot about Pat McGrath and how much he loves her products. And there's this like highlighter stick that also has like a balm on it. And he's used that in so many of his tutorials that I really want it now. I don't need it. I don't need it at all. Like that, I can say that I can want that, but I will probably never use it, and that is okay. I'm just gonna write that one off. So let's get to the other ones. I just wanted to mention that. Utopian Dream. I know everyone was anticipating it being a rainbow palette, and then it wasn't. And I understand the disappointment, especially if you already own a lot of Pat McGrath palettes, because I noticed that she does tend to go for like the pinky rosy neutral tones a lot, which, you know, I understand that if you have a lot of that, it can get tiring. But in terms of like shades, that palette is actually really up my alley. I love, like, when I do neutrals, I like to go pink. So that plus like some cute little shifty shades, that little lavender in there, it looks very, very, very appealing. The thing that I am anti-hauling about it is that it is $129 and I could pay bills with that. I could buy groceries with that money. That is the money that I want to spend on buying some nice yarn to knit Case a sweater for Christmas. I can get a Pat McGrath palette after I knit that sweater because that is very much on my knitting to-do list. I'm gonna film a knitting video sometime very soon. We'll see. I love it. It is beautiful and I would like to have it in my possession one day. However, when you're 25 and like broke and like kind of just getting on your feet a little bit, at least for me right now, that would not be a smart choice for me to make. So no, that's just not gonna happen. And then the blushes. So she has like bundles of like that are like $90 for 3 blushes, and there is actually one that is kind of like in the rosy neutral end of blushes that I literally, like, I went on her website and I put that in my cart and I was seriously considering it for like 5 minutes. And I don't mean that in like a sarcastic way, like, oh, I consider that for 5 minutes. Like, no, I was sitting at my computer just kind of like staring at it for 5 minutes, like, you know, if I like scrimp and save a little bit here to build up the money to spend $90 on a 3 blush bundle from Pat McGrath. I know that her blushes are definitely going to be on the more pigmented side from the reviews that I've seen. If Pennywise were to come after me, he would come in the form of a very pigmented blush. And so even if things are on the more neutral side, because I do like a neutral blush, I feel like I would have to use a very light hand and I would get way too scared and it would not work out for me. So maybe down the line, probably there is one that's kind of like the lightest shade in there that looks like a little bit glowy, a little bit like a nudie glow. I'm not explaining this well and my lipstick is wearing off in the center. I might get that down the line, but I certainly don't need a blush bundle, especially when I also know like I own 3 shades of blush in the form of like 10 different blushes. So like, do I really need to be adding to that? No, especially not with Pat McGrath money. Then finally, I love Melt's products, but sometimes I hate their branding. They released liquid highlighters called Sex Foils. It's like, I can kind of get the name of NARS Orgasm, you know? Like, I get why that blush is called what it is called. And I'm not a prude when it comes to names of things. Like, do what you want, you know, like even better than Sex mascara kind of, you know, like it makes sense. You know, I can kind of get why those things are branded the way they are, but like a series of liquid highlighters called Sex Foils, if you understand why they named that the way they did, please let me know in the comments below. One, I won't use liquid highlighter as much as I think I will. It might be nice to wear like kind of underneath the tinted moisturizer. I could see it using it that way, and I have seen people use it that way, and it looks really nice on them, so maybe I could use it in that way, you know, make my face look even greasier than it already looks right now. Yeah, this isn't highlight, this is just my face. Well, this is not highlight. So, you know, I like that look. I love a glowy, dewy look, so maybe I could use it that way. But even if I did, that's one of those things that like, if I wore it and got complimented on it, like I would not want to explain the product that I used to get that look. I just don't want to explain to people that I'm wearing a highlighter called a Sex Foil on my face. And I don't want to lie to people either. So I think that product looks really pretty, and genuinely I would love to have like everything from Melt. Oh, that leads me to one more. And I'm going to close this out by saying I don't need a highlighter called Sex Foil, especially when it's a liquid highlighter, when I prefer a powder highlighter. Okay, cutting that there. Melt has released a giant brush set for like $250. I don't know, anyway, it's majorly out of my budget, so that's keeping me from buying it. But if I had that amount of money in disposable income, I would absolutely buy it, because I have the brushes from the Melt and Beetlejuice collection. Oh, they're so good. I love them and I use them all the time. I want to mention that those are on my wish list, and I also want to mention that I did have a dream the other night that I started receiving PR from Melt. Like, I had made an order for like an eyeliner from them, and then they decided to send me all of the products in their collection that I didn't have. I'm not sure if that's actually going to get me on their PR list, especially after I was just like crapping all over the Sex Foil highlighter, but like, it was a very nice dream, and I would like to put that out into the universe. If Melt ever watches one of my videos, hi. I wear your stuff on my face all the time. It has been almost 40 minutes. And I am not looking forward to editing this at all, but oh boy, I hope you enjoy it when you see it. Anyway, let me know what's on your wish list that you're trying to anti-haul down below. I'm sure that like, if you're watching my videos, we probably share some sort of taste in makeup in one way or another. So, you know, I might need to anti-haul those things too, or you might need to anti-haul some of the things that I've mentioned, because, you know, we want to spend our money in ways that like actually work for us instead of just impulse buying everything. While impulse buys can work, you know, impulse buy in moderation. And yeah, that's kind of my philosophy of like, impulse buys aren't inherently bad, but we should probably do them a little bit more in moderation and like maybe plan a little bit more. Okay, so that's it. Thank you so much for watching. Give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and subscribe if you want to see more videos from me. And I will see you on my next one. I hope you'll have a wonderful day. Bye!